Well, you know what? The scripture, it was Roger Burke, and I'm double the one.
So this is old news then, is what you're saying?
Well, this is old stuff. The scripture reading, I'm just sent you the people that are sick list.
You got me so confused this morning, I don't even know.
You just do what you want to do.
This is tennis notes.
June has a template you go in and you change the old stuff and put it in.
I didn't have a chance.
He's thinking you got the mouse.
I'll tell you what,
Hey,
take class from me and I'll change the notes for you. I just sent you my old notes.
you know where it is?
What's going on, buddy? Well, hey, Claire. Good to see you. Well, if you're wondering what's happening, Keith and I and Casey were talking, and we thought it'd be a good idea if maybe we kind of let other people fill in for class time instead of Casey having it all the time. And I opened my mouth so that I got the first one. Sometimes it's best not to put a suggestion out there, guys. We'll have the rest of everybody in just a moment. As we begin our class this morning, before we get started, let's remember in our prayer, Linda Tucker. She's still at home. Bill Bailey is home now. Terry Hughes is home recovering from her surgery, and Lloyd, they're trying to get him scheduled for rehab. Let's remember Mark Mosley, Neil Wesley. Lynn Freeman found out that she had gone back into the hospital, been there for about a week, that we didn't know about. She's home now, but they've got scheduled for back surgery where she had cracked one of her vertebrae, and they're going to work on that on December the 14th. And I'll continue to remember Alan Wicke and his family and all in our prayers. Continue to remember family of Tommy Sue Bishop who passed away also, and others that are on our list. And let's go to God in word of prayer. And Sean, will you lead us in that prayer?
Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, holy is your name. We approach your throne this morning, thanking you for this day and its many blessings. We're thankful for the time we could come together this morning to study your word and learn more about you and apply it into our lives to make us better Christians and be ready, willing, and able to teach it to those who
to have Charles and Nancy find their way back home. Good to have y'all with us for several months here, hopefully. So, this morning, we're going to be studying in our Proverbs, and we shift our focus to family and home relationships. This morning, we're going to be trying to look at the child relation. Starts out in the first probably 6 or 7 Proverbs concerning a wise son versus a foolish son. So, over the years, I know growing up, as Dee Dee and I grew up as we had children, it was a growing process. There were so many things out there that here's how you do your children. Here's how so many books out there. I can't even remember the guy that was out, the big one, Schultz, was it? I can't remember. Some guy that had how to raise your children, But we can look here in the Proverbs and give us a really good handle on how we can raise our children, help us to grow in that respect as we train our children and teach them as they grow and grow older. Okay, let's jump into Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1. Okay, Keith, would you read that for me?
How far you want me to read the whole thing?
Chapter 10, verse 1.
Oh, verse 1, okay. That's pretty.
All of it.
The proverb of Solomon: a wise son makes a glad father, and a foolish son is a sorrow to his mother.
Okay. Real simple. Hey, that's easy. Okay, right? Let's go on, right? No. What is this idea? We see the idea of the wise son making a father glad. For those who have older children, what is it when you have, and we use this word son, we can flip-flop child in there also. What is it when your child gets older and they start making good decisions? What kind of feelings do you have with that?
Very good feelings when children make wise decisions.
Yes, maybe I did something right. Sean?
They'll have a major impact on the family.
Okay, will have an impact on the family and all. What else? Anybody? Keith?
We use the word proud,
Proud. Okay.
and maybe not so much that the father gets to feel like he did something right, but that the consistency of the word has affected his son. He shares the same love for God, which will bless his life.
Okay. Good.
Just about to make those good decisions, we'll have to train them right. We got to teach them and train them.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be taught.
Okay.
Learn it on their own.
Okay. Good.
But you can also train them up in the way that they should go. But sometimes they do fall away.
Well, yes. And we go back to the Proverbs we talked about in the beginning. What did we talk about the Proverbs in the beginning, Casey?
It's a choice. You either choose to be foolish or you choose to be wise, and those who choose to be foolish cause a lot of pain and suffering to themselves and people around them.
Okay. And we talked about these Proverbs also as these being general rules, right? It's not steadfast always, because there are times when a parent does everything they can, and there's a choice. There's a choice. Okay. On the flip side of that, the foolish son. What does it say about the foolish son? And we could throw daughter there. That's not a problem. What is this foolish son?
We change from proud to disappointed.
Okay, disappointed. It says this is English Standard, right? It says, but a foolish son is a grief to his mother and all. Whereas just a minute ago we were talking about being proud, being, elated, happy that they're making good choices and all. This foolish son causes grief. And what's that idea of grief? Is it, well, back up. Is this just a foolish choice that we're talking about in this Proverbs? A bad choice here or there? You know, I know I have my children here, so I have to be careful. I know at times that I see them make choices that I don't agree with. That's not necessarily a foolish choice, is it? It's just, I would have chose differently.
This seems to be a lifestyle.
Okay, there you go, a lifestyle. That idea of a lifestyle of foolish. Have you seen any videos lately of young people getting stopped by the police or something? And there's just like, where did this come from? You know, it's crazy, some of the stuff. And the idea there in the King James Version, who has the King James Version? No, huh? Okay. Will you read that Proverbs 1:10? I mean 10:1?
The Proverbs of Solomon, a wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother.
Heaviness of his mother. Has anybody ever had a heavy heart? Something that just weighed down on you, almost made you sick. I'll say ill, almost makes you ill. You almost can't function. That's the idea. I think of times in my life, it's not necessarily with my children, but with other things, that something happened that I had to deal with, and it almost incapacitated me. I almost said decapitated me.
These kind of lifestyles on both sides affects, to me, what I've seen in the past
Uh-huh.
from own experiences and experience of people I grew up with. They affect the daddy and the mama different. You know, the daddy eventually gets tired of it and he breaks your plate. And the mama carries that sorrow from now on.
Mhm.
It's different.
Different way that maybe men deal with issues compared to some of the women that deals with issues. Melvin, do you have?
Yeah, growing up, the mother is around the kids more as they grow up. And when she sees them not turning out too good,
Yeah.
it hurts them probably deeper. Well, they did most of the training.
Okay. All right, anything else on this passage? Proverbs 13:1. And the first several passages we're going to be talking are basically pretty close to the same, just a little bit different. Proverbs 13:1. Thomas, will you read that for me?
A wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke.
Okay. So what do we see here? What is this? Somebody paint this picture better for me.
Well, you got a listener and you got an ignorer. One takes advice and heeds it, and the other laughs at it and continues in his ways.
Okay. All right.
This is a stronger contrast than the previous one. The other one's just foolish.
Right.
This one's a scoffer. He thinks he knows better. And he knows it all. And he has no respect for authority.
Okay. I had a passage of, good point there. Proverbs 15:12, kind of general, very similar to this. Proverbs 15:12, a scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise. He's not, don't tell me what to do. I don't want to hear it, you know. I don't want to know anything that's, you know, that I did wrong. Sean?
1 Kings 12,
Uh-huh.
verse 6 through 8, Rehoboam, Solomon's son,
good example of that.
when he lost his kingdom.
Okay. Anything else, Casey?
It kind of reminds me of this son who listens is being told he's wrong or being told how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And the scoffer is refusing to listen to a rebuke. The rebuke is saying you did things wrong, and he's unwilling to listen to that and unwilling to change. And I think it kind of points to the heart of the child. If the heart of the child is tender and willing to listen, then he's wise. If the heart of the child is hard and proud, then he's foolish, and he is going to be the one that brings grief to the mother,
Okay.
causes issues.
Good point. In Proverbs, the 30th chapter, verse 17, there it says, and it's very similar, the eye that mocks a father and scorns to obey a mother will be picked out by the ravens of the valley and eaten by the vultures. Wow. So, I'm looking, I thought I had a passage. We'll get to that a little bit later. So, that's a pretty gruesome thought there. And the idea of it just not wanting to be told or be corrected. And Butch?
When I studied these when I was young, and even later, I always looked at it strictly in the sense of the physical relationship. And this time I put down a reminder right to begin with, to look also with the spiritual relationship. As we're looking at these things and these proverbs and talking about the physical father and the physical mother, I also think of it in terms of we're children of God. God is our Father. And I know the mother would be exact and change, but put the church in the place of the mother. And so when I read these things as a father, and a wise man heeds his father's instructions, that's a good lesson for us spiritually.
Excellent.
We need to heed what God's word. And if we're a scoffer of God's word, if we don't listen to that rebuke, what does that lead to? It leads to a difference between life and death.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, even in the spiritual sense, it leads to that. We have so many young people now that are dying young because they make such bad decisions. They scoff at what the Father says about drugs or whatever, and they end up living a short lifetime because of it. So as we go through these, sometimes we need to just stop after we look at the original proverb as
Right.
it was, and think of it in that spiritual sense.
Yep. It's hard for us to sometimes look at it from that standpoint that we are children of a mighty God, and that He knows what's best for us, and we should always be looking to Him for what is right, what is the best way to do. But so many times we're looking to us as to what we want to do. I'm going to get you in just a second, Claire. Casey had his. Casey?
As you look at this verse in combination with the last one that we just looked at, it's almost like the last one points to the consequences of making a decision, and this one is a description of the decision that the son is making.
Right.
So many times I've read like parenting books and things proverb, you're not trying to just correct behavior. It's possible to help our children to do all the right things, but if they don't want to do the right things, and if they're not willing to listen with a willingness, then it's not really going to help them. So really the goal is to create children who are like what we're supposed to be as Christians, who actually want to listen to the instruction and want to grow and want to understand what's right and what's good. And I think that the spiritual aspect and seeing us as Christians, having that mentality, yeah, that's what God's trying to create in us, and that's exactly what we should be trying to create in our children as well.
Okay. Claire?
I think the verse, the eye that mocks the father and scorns to obey a mother, even applies to like parents who aren't Christians and who aren't faithful and haven't lived like a godly life. Like my dad, he was raised by non-Christians,
Right.
and he took care of them until the day they died and respected them, and even though he didn't obey them,
Right.
he still like, I feel like God wants us to listen to our parents and respect them even if they're not necessarily Christians, or I don't know.
Well, I see what you're saying. Our parents put us back when we were 15 or 16, when we began to know everything, you know. Isn't that right? At 15 or 16, our parents got really dumb in our minds. You know, even that, this just real world things that they knew better how to handle than what we did, you know. And go to Butch's point, here we are, maybe we're 20, maybe we're 50, maybe we're 80, you know. God still knows better how we should conduct our lives than I do, you know. All I can do is look at what he says and try to obey him and follow his instructions, you know. So whether we're 15 with a physical parent or 20 or whatever, there's wisdom that they've gone through that we haven't gone through, you know. And also, as we do that, we need to be mindful of, good point, Claire, that we, you know, whether they're Christians or not, maybe they don't have a good idea of spiritual things to do, but real life events. Most parents have that capability. You know. Anything else, Butch?
And there's a difference between wisdom and intelligence. I know growing up that in my time, a lot of those kids had parents that didn't graduate from high school. But all of the wisdom that they had about life, how to live it. And sometimes we get, like you said, to that age, we think they don't know anything.
Right.
But then about 30, 40, that we
Yeah.
realize they do a lot. It's totally different. But we shouldn't scoff at a parent because of his level of education. We should think about what he actually knows and what wisdom and what he's trying to, or her, trying to instill in us.
Oh, yeah. My dad made it through the 6th grade, and he had a lot of wisdom and knowledge on, you know, in life and all. So, you know, yeah. Keith?
I was going to add, there's been some really good comments, trying to pull some of them together though, but we always talk, earlier I was going to make a comment, let's just cut to the chase, we're talking about 14 to 22. You know? But as you think about that for a second, you realize that we create 14 to 22s in the homes we live in. And from the day you're given a child, and you have no instruction manual, we actually do, but we think we had not one. And we will make mistakes, and we will make decisions that will probably go into their memory. So we come back to consistency, to trying to reprove, to encourage, and to think of those things and we realize where we've grown, maybe we've done things wrong. But we have a part in who this 14 to 22-year-old is. And, because guess what? There's some great 14 to 22-year-olds. And not necessarily all the fault of the parent, because there's some free will of the kid and some individuality. And there's some influences at school and other things that usually have the biggest control of them. But I think it's important for us to realize how young parents that are in the room is that think, when they listen to this old man, the consistency you give at home and the love you give at home goes back to Casey's comments, and how we create them. If we're not excited to worship God and they don't see that excitement in us as they grow up, why are they supposed to be excited? If they don't understand why, if we don't understand why we serve God and how important He is to us, how will they ever understand how important God is? And they will be going through the motions. And so the individuality of how we spend time with them. You know, we started off that very first passage and we were trying to say this is a overall, and I don't know that you could say that it could only be overall, because I see life from a child's point of view full of foolish decisions and good decisions. And Daddy is proud when he makes good decisions. And there is a hurting in the heart of disappointment when they make bad decisions. I mean, I can remember them really well. And there's a lump in your throat, and there's a depression that hits you as a parent. And but just to realize for all the pain that there can be, how much joy there is when we're not in their environment and they're out on their own and they make a good choice. And it glorifies God. It glorifies God. That's what it's all about. So we have to be able to do everything we can. And I'm just going to say, consistency, willing to tell them that you love them, willing to tell them that you fail. You know, those are very important things to be able to do so that they can see that Dad's not a perfect person either. But he always has a heart that is saddened when he disappoints his father or his heavenly Father. And that's, you know, to me, that's the important part of it. And that's how we might can sway this good child, bad child thing into the favor of the Lord.
Okay. You know, that's, well, Jessie's here, so she can tell you all my mistakes that I've made, you know, trying to raise her and Sarah, but, you know, and I made plenty, you know. And I think you're right, you know, when we're wrong, we admit we're wrong, you know. With, you know, when we look at this idea, and I'm glad you talked about it, where 14 to 20 is probably where, but to get to 14 and 20, we've got to make a lot of choices and a lot of training in between there and all. So, you know, it's good for us to be aware. What would we like in our children to be? What would we like them to be? How do we get to that point? How do we raise them to that point? But, you know, and then again, it might be we do everything we can, and then our child doesn't turn out like that, like we would like for them to. Yes.
I will say.
Kalisa, I forgot your name there for a minute.
I will say not every parent gives us the example to grow up to be.
Yes.
Like, so I haven't spoke to my dad in 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
because I know what I don't want to be.
Right.
So.
Well, you know, and sometimes, you know, the same way that sometimes we can train a child and they don't wind up being what we want to be, we can train a child how they don't need to be and they grow up better. We can definitely do that. So
That's that individuality and freedom.
that's the individual, yes. Yep, that helps to go in there.
Isn't that always our hope, that they'll be better
Yes,
than we are?
we're better than I am, yes. Yes, because I know my faults inside and out, right? Okay, Proverbs 15:20. Lynn, will you read that for me?
A
What's the difference between that passage and the ones we've already read?
Despises his mother.
Yeah. That's pretty tough, ain't it? You know, the idea is, you know, up to now, it's like they made bad decisions, or they made foolish, or they became foolish, and there is a constant foolish decision. But to despise your mother, you know,
Well, the mother might have to make some hard decisions, you know,
Yeah.
that makes her, makes them that way, you know.
yeah,
Or she can't stand that, you know.
Yep.
For her children to grow up that way. And you have to make hard decisions, say some hard things
hmm
that don't always work good.
okay. Anything else, Butch? I see something rumbling there.
This is a very deep thing when you think about the relationship of a mother to a child. Uh, even back then, it's similar to today. The very earliest years of a child's life is spent being bonded very closely to the mother.
Mhm.
She handles all that. You know, the dad just does the big questions. But the mother is in, you know, dealing with all of these emotions
Yes.
and everything. How fast a child grows in those first early years, the first 7 or 8 years of their life. And they're so closely bonded to that mother, and then he turns and despises them. Oh,
That's, yeah. Casey?
Think about, you know, of the two parents, the mother is usually the one that is more compassionate, more gracious, more merciful. In most cases, that's kind of the way that women are toward their children, whereas the dad's more firm and more direct and instructive and stuff. Um, so whenever the son decides to be foolish, he's taking all of that compassion and mercy and grace that he's given, and he's going to take advantage of it. And he's going to, it says, despise his mother. It's like she didn't give him all that compassion and mercy so that he could take advantage of it.
Right.
She gave it to him so that he would have another chance, you know, so that he could correct and make changes and do the right thing. And then you think about, there's this obvious parallel to the spiritual, which is what Butch kind of pointed us back to think about these Proverbs. In Hebrews 10, it says, if we go on sinning willfully after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice. And then it goes on to say, because we've despised what God has done for us. You know, we have spat in his face, so to speak. We have stepped on his blessings that he's promised us. And so I think it's interesting here, it says it despises his mother. It's pointing to the one who gave you another chance. You didn't care, and you didn't really take advantage of it.
Good point. So we've gone from being foolish to a mocker to a scoffer, now to one who despises the mother and all.
He despises the one that probably loves us the most.
Right, right. And now we go to the spiritual aspect of that. Throw God in there. Do we despise God when we want to do something, something we want to do, but God has directed us toward not doing that, or commanded us in times? And hey, sometimes He says it's better to, you know, we talked about better to go to the house of mourning, put our lives in perspective, you know. But sometimes we just despise what He's wanted us to do.
And there's one other thing that is a big trend today, and that's despising the church.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just talking about Church of Christ, right? despising the organized religion. Everybody wants to go their way. We don't need, we don't need to go to church on
Right.
Sunday. We don't need the help of other people. We can handle religion within our own self. In the old days, we said fishing on the creek bank was just as good.
Right.
But now, I can tell you to anything, I can have my religion
Right.
without the help of organized.
And we get into there where God has told us differently,
Yeah.
and we think we have better idea than what God is. Now we're a 5-year-old trying to tell mom and dad, I know best, right? You know, that's always the interesting part to me when I start really putting in perspective. Okay, you got a 5, a 6, or 8, 10-year-old trying to tell mom and dad what's best, and I'm doing the same thing spiritually, telling God I know better. You know, and it don't work that way. God knows much more than I will ever know. Okay, Proverbs 17:21. Miss Freddie, do you have that one? Proverbs 17:21.
Yes. He that begotten a fool does it to his sorrow, and the father of a fool have mercy. Have no,
Joy.
no joy.
Okay. So now we're getting back to from the father's standpoint, you know, who begets a scoffer. I like the English Standard Version says, he who sires a fool, you know, he who sires a fool gets himself sorrow. You know, again, we see that idea of the sorrow, the heavy-heartedness that we looked at begin with. There's no joy to see that, you know. So again, if anybody doesn't have anything else, anybody got anything on that particular? We're doing a lot of redundancy and building upon what we've already studied, but anybody have anything on that one? Let's turn the page and get to chapter 17, verse 2. Claire, will you read verse 2?
A servant who deals wisely will rule over a son who acts shamefully, and will share the inheritance as one of the brothers.
Okay. Well, that's totally different. What does that mean?
Well, no, I'm trying to reread it.
What's different about that one?
It's a comparison between a son not doing the right things with the servant that is.
And the servant has no inheritance in the family, right? None whatsoever. You know, and yet it says he will rule over a son who causes shame. You know, that in itself puts a pretty. We see the father at that point. It's not said, but it shows that the father at that point sees the foolishness and elevates a servant above his own son. You know, any parallels there?
Makes you have to think of the Jews being substituted with Gentiles.
Yeah.
Because they were the natural one that you would think should reign and rule. And because of their hearts, God chose another people.
Right.
To open up to someone else.
Good point. Good point. Good. You read my mind. That could be scary, Keith. Melvin?
He has to rule over his rebellious son, you know, he can't make him special in that bunch of other brothers.
No.
He got to share all that with him.
Yeah.
He can't have that special guy who's bad, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He can't get no more than anybody else.
Okay.
And sometimes they do, you know.
Yep.
It's a parallel with the Bible almost and ended up inheriting. He was the leader.
Right.
Rather than some of the sons, as far as history is
Right.
concerned.
Right. Okay. Well, I really want to get to Proverbs 20:20. And hopefully we'll end on this particular one. Proverbs 20:20. Greg, will you read that for me?
If one curses his father or his mother, his lamp will be put out in utter darkness.
Okay. I gotta remember there's two Gregs. That's good though. That's fine. I was looking this way and like, oh, wait a second. Okay. Anything come to mind here? Whoever curses his father or mother, his lamp would put out in darkness.
That's utter destruction of the individual, whether it's referring to in this life or in final judgment.
Mhm.
Tend to think it's the latter, but at any rate, it's not good.
Yeah. Well, look at it from the standpoint of this being when it was written in under the old law. What was the old law? Leviticus 20, verse 9. Somebody pull that to me and read that for me. Leviticus 20 and verse 9. Greg? This Greg.
For everyone who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He has cursed his father or his mother, his blood shall be upon him.
Okay, under the old law, it was death. You know, so and with all that we've read now, it's not just a foolish decision or unwise decision. This is cursing mother and father, unruly to the point that it doesn't seem to be on. And what did they have to do? What did the parents have to do? I can't hear Miss Lizzie, but she said it. Something. Remember, the parents had to bring the child to the priest. I'm sure it was the priest. I don't have his name, but I'm sure it was the priest. And and say, this child won't listen. And then they stoned him. That's pretty bad, ain't it? Can you imagine? Can you imagine the emotional weight that was on a mother, as we talked about, who has got that emotional relationship with her child, or the father who's tried to maybe raise that child up and he hasn't? That's a pretty tough weight on them to get to that point in life, to actually realize that this child was going to be put to death. Imagine it wasn't the first time he or she balked at mom and dad that this happened, but it's a way of life for this child.
It says he brought it to the elders of the city of the gate.
Okay.
So he had to bring them to the elders.
Okay. Okay. Butch?
This is another change in our society. Back before us, we were taught to respect our elders. And usually, cursing or swearing or whatever is a form of abuse. And it can lead to physical as well as mental, but it is abuse. But back then, about all the abuse you heard of was parent to the child. But now, as the elderly is becoming a large part of the population
Right.
and live long, and they lose their patience, there's a lot of abuse of the children to the parents.
Right. All right. So let's get ready for our next passage next week. Thank y'all so much.